There we go. Yep,
Yes?
we can see it.
Okay, everybody. The journey that it took to get here this morning. Hello. My
Super
name is
grateful.
Jessica Winston, and I am really, really excited to share a few stories of success that I had with Snorkel with writing. The examples that I'm going to share today are going to be with fourth graders, but I've used Snorkel and they're in a writing process with as low as second grade. So, again, my name is Jessica Winston. I am an instructional technology specialist with NEISD here in San Antonio, Texas. This is my 18th year in education, sixth as an ITS, and my passion is really fourth grade writing. And so when I started using Snorkel in the classroom, it was just really excited to see students, their faces just light up, specifically my own son, and I can tell you about that later. So the project that we're going to go over today is the fourth grade. The entire campus was given a prompt: what laws would you enact if you were president? And when I tell you that the children gave me all kinds of things, it was amazing. It was amazing. So from pollution to moving out when you were 18, that's a law. Get out of your parents' house. Um, which I did $1 for everything. So these are the topics that we're kind of going through in the background. Now, in the writing process, I worked with this teacher from the very start of it. The kids did a fair amount of brainstorming, and we talked about where it would be appropriate to use Snorkel. And so in the writing process, this is where I would use it. Not so much the brainstorming and the drafting part, because that is really organic to the teachers, and then just the students can really put in their voice and their thinking. But once they have got their first draft down, that is a perfect place for us to introduce Snorkel. Now, it is only for them to get ideas, little feedbacks. If the teacher is looking for a specific thing, like maybe I only want to focus on beginning well, then that's what I'm going to prompt into Snorkel. So during that first read, it's only going to be looking for that part, or perhaps the end. Sometimes the kiddos don't have a really strong way of wrapping up their work. So this first draft could help with them and give them specific feedback on their draft. The next place that I like to use it in my classroom, once we have our sloppy copy, we break out a blue pen and a red pen. And the blue is for revising. So that's when we read it out loud, make sure that it sounds the way that we would like, and strengthen our word choices and some of our conventions. Um, with the red pen, we went over capitalization, punctuation, and that is our overall. We just made it really, really messy, then to move on to our next draft. So in that editing and revising portion, the kiddos are getting feedback that says, hey, did you think about adding this to strengthen the sentence? Or you really had a strong ending there. How else could you say this? I love the way that it prompts the students to grow their thinking and grow their writing. The next place that I would use Snorkel is before you go and sit with a friend, and after you've done all of your sloppy copy revisions, you can go in and add another submission to Snorkel, and then build that before you go and talk with your friend or your teacher. Now, when I was doing writing conferences, I would have to take small groups, and I never felt like I could hit those groups as effectively as I could with Snorkel, because one, I have them working individually on their work, and then I can definitely go back and see the insights. So these are the three main areas that I would use: first read, revision and editing, and then a peer review. Sometimes they can actually tag team on it and say, okay, this is the feedback I got, and what did you get? So yeah, that's where I would use it. And then the next portion is the feedback. So we started paper pencil, that's where we always start. And the students from one class to another were um, were tasked to write their ideas and then go around and add feedback. The thing is that fourth graders, the first class, did not have a very um, healthy way of giving feedback to their classmates. It wasn't helpful. It did not grow their writing. And so we had to have conversations. So here's an example. I don't agree, because parents don't have to pay rent. The kids can save up a lot of money. That was great response to the prompt, but it was not helping the person to add to their writing. Here's another. a little bit of feedback the kiddos gave. Yeah. And originally here is the gigantic piece of work. Let's see. If I look, if you look right here, it says add some detail. Add more, please. I think that if we stop wars, how do we defend ourselves? That was another type of prompt. So when we were walking around, and you could see it on the kids' like physical body, they were just physically kind of crushed with the type of feedback that they got from their counterparts. So what we did was we introduced conversation stems, and I disagree with you about this, but I want to hear a little bit more about your thoughts. Now, you can't see the conversation stems. When you get those, you'll be able to see. But what we did was we ran the first class through Snorkl, and they got to see how the feedback was given, specifically what it looks like when you do write down. So here is my first read. It gives you positive feedback. It points out what's missing, and it prompts the kiddos to think critically. So this is one of the writing samples from our kiddos during the editing revising part. I asked them to read their draft out loud. Then, after they read it, listen to it to see if it sounds exactly the way they wanted it to sound. Because sometimes our brains will look at the writing, and if we're reading it to ourselves, our brains will autocorrect it. So it's very important for them to hear it, and that feature in Snorkl where they can play it back is invaluable. So once they have submitted their feedback, we're going to make their writing better. So this is her piece. And I'm going to show you the feedback that Snorkl gave her. And we shared this with the students, and we asked, was this helpful? Was this able to help you grow your writing? And some of them said, yes, it was very helpful. We did run into the problem where one person, I think it was the peanut butter jelly prompt, that there's a couple that we use just for introduction. And the feedback said, well, I only use a knife for the peanut butter and the jelly. And one kid said, I don't do that. I use a spoon for the jelly. And they were thinking that their way of doing things was incorrect. So with the feedback that was given, we had a really great conversation about if the feedback doesn't apply, if it is not helpful, then you can disregard it, which rolled right into our students and their feedback. And the second group of kids, after we went through the conversation starters, saying, be more curious. Like if you didn't understand the portion of their writing, that's really a you thing. The person that wrote it had every intention and gave you the information. So instead of saying, this is wrong or add more details, maybe we can ask questions like, well, I see when you said this, what did you mean by that? Or I wasn't clear when you said this. Could you share what you were thinking? That then starts conversations between the students, and then it helps them to move to that next part in growing their writing. So the other portion of Snorkl, and John is going to share this in just a second, is how the typing feature allows you to share mentor text ideas, um, adds extra anchor text for the students to refer back to. I know that we were talking about extended constructed responses and short constructed responses. You're looking for elements of that text to be present in the writing. And with Snorkl, it can make those connections. And so with that next part, what I would like John to show is how that actually works. So before you have you had the opportunity to speak out loud and have it recorded, or my students would just type, especially they had long bits of text, and then just get the feedback from there. But now there's a combination of those both that really, really works. And so, yay, John.
And I'm excited to share. Jessica, can you hear me? I don't know if you can. I don't know if you can hear me. There's
Oh,
something going
he's
on
on.
with the audio there, but hopefully you can
I
see me
can.
on the screen. It makes it a little bit more challenging to co-present here. Jessica, I really, really appreciate what you just shared.
Hello, hello.
Yes.
I think we might be having some technical difficulties. I'm not sure. Oh no, there he is. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Here I am. So I think one of the amazing things here is this past year we were in conversation with the folks at leadership team and coaches there at Northeast ISD, Jessica being one of them. And in their district, they were using Snorkl a ton for writing. And we thought that was really interesting. When we designed Snorkl, we really designed it around this idea of capturing student thinking in rich multimodal ways. We allow students to record and explain and show their thinking, like actually talk and type and draw. But we didn't really set out to be a writing tool. And what we saw, though, is the folks at Northeast ISD had figured out that, if you had students type on the whiteboard, you could have them submit their whiteboards and get feedback on their writing. And we thought that was interesting. We thought that was powerful. We saw immediately how powerful that would be if you're trying to have a tool that can give that instant feedback on writing that's aligned with teacher goals, that lives within a platform that's controlled and has data visibility and all of those things. And so we actually expanded on this idea, and we had some conversations with them about what could make this even better. And so over the summer, we released some new writing tools. So this actually is brand new. This was not being used by Northeast ISD. They were doing this last year with whiteboards. But now if you go to the Snorkl homepage, you click create an activity, you actually see 4 different options here. So you got your classic whiteboard recording. This is exactly what we've started with our bread and butter. It's the Snorkl experience where students share and record, and they can write and they can draw and speak. We got the whiteboard only tool, which the Northeast ISD team was using to have students type without the audio. Just submit your typing, and the AI will analyze it and give feedback. We've got the audio only tool, which, as it sounds, just captures student audio. But we actually just released in June the writing tool. And so we thought, how can we better serve this purpose, allow for Snorkl to support writing teachers even better? And ultimately, a whiteboard is a great experience if you're writing a paragraph. But if you're trying to write multiple paragraphs, or you're trying to do something a little bit different and more in depth, we thought we could support that better with the writing tool. And so when you go into Snorkl, you can create an activity. I'll just model this really quickly here, where you can select writing, and it allows teachers to add a writing prompt or a question for the screen. This could be about having students write a paragraph. This could be about having students write an essay. This could be about having students answer an exit ticket question with 2 or 3 questions in writing. Once you've entered that, you can add your own sources. And we thought this was a really powerful addition, especially on writing activities where you might want students to refer to a primary source document. You might want them to actually use those documents in their writing as well. So you can add sources. You can copy and paste materials in here. You can actually include images in your sources as well. And then, very similar to how you set up any other activity in Snorkl, let me go ahead and put something in here. You scroll down, and the AI will analyze that to set up criteria for success for how it's going to give feedback to your students. So we show this to teachers. We include teachers in this because we think it's really important that you as a teacher have the ability to customize this and edit it to your goals. But we also want to make it really simple to use so that you could do things like a daily quick write, or maybe you're using it for your CERs in science class, or just all sorts of different ways that you can use the writing tool. We get lots of questions about, like, can I customize the rubric and the scoring on writing activities? The answer is yes, to some extent. So all Snorkl activities are scored on a 0 through 4 scale. We use that 0 through 4 all the time, but you can go ahead and edit anything that you want the AI to look for here. So you can say, I think a 4 is XYZ, a 3 is XYZ. You can go ahead and define that criteria for success for your students, and it will guide how the AI scores and gives feedback to your students. So what does this look like for a student? Well, when students open it up, instead of seeing a whiteboard, they're actually going to see the prompt here on the left-hand side. They've got sources that they can have read aloud to them. You can have multiple sources. And then on the right-hand side, students have a text editor where they can type their response. This is pretty versatile. So again, you could do this to do like a multi-paragraph essay. You could do this to answer a short question in text form. And then when students are ready, they go ahead and they press that submit end and review button and submit. And very similar to that whiteboard experience, students will now get feedback on their written work. So we built this really to try to expand on the multimodal ways that we capture student thinking, and really in conversation with the team at Northeast ISD and the incredible ways they were using Snorkl for writing this past year. That feedback, again, is going to be aligned to the teacher's learning goals and objectives. It's going to celebrate what's going right in student thinking and ask them questions about what's wrong and where they can improve. Depending on the grade level, we'll adjust that feedback to be shorter or longer or simpler. Students can actually use that feedback right away to respond again and revise their work, and Snorkl will save every one of their attempts. And so we know that the revision process is really essential to writing. We want students to get quick at-bats, quick feedback, be able to revise. And as a teacher, you can see those snapshots all the way around. So just so you are aware here, when you set up Snorkl activities, you have the option to allow your students to have access to some extra tools that can give them additional support, including Snorkl Coach. It allows for more read aloud. And you also have an option for students to get their feedback in different languages. You might have seen there when this first popped up, it was feedback in Spanish, but students can customize their feedback language as well. One other piece that we know is really important for writing is that when students are revising their work, we want to celebrate that revision process. We want to acknowledge that they are making changes. And so if students use that respond again button and make changes to their work, Snorkl will track those changes, and so they can celebrate them. It can say like, hey, great job. I see you revised your thesis this time. This looks a lot stronger. Or, hey, I see that you added more details here. That really helps strengthen your argument. So Snorkl has knowledge of that revision process as well, and gives teachers insights into the entire experience. One last thing here I'll share, and then maybe we can do a little bit of sharing here. Jessica would love to pull you back in here, but I don't know if you can hear me right now. So I know you're able to see my screen, but we're having an audio issue with StreamYard. But on this teacher side, you can see all your students' work. And if students copied and pasted work content to their writing activity, we'll actually flag that for the teacher. And so you can open it up and see what was pasted onto the whiteboard. I know that that's increasingly become a question that folks have. And so we built that feature so that you have some visibility there. We're really excited about the possibilities that this opens up for fall, and excited to see all the different ways that folks are leveraging it. I was just visiting a district last week, Prosper, and also in Texas, and they're coming up with these really interesting ideas. They're like, what if I put in some writing with grammar mistakes and ask students to rewrite it without the grammar mistakes and fix it? Like, that works. What if I ask students just to come up with 3 similes, 3 metaphors, and explain the difference with them? That works. So there's a lot of versatility around that writing tool. And then, of course, you can also do really interesting things with the recording experience still as well, having students reflect on their writing, having students write and then record or ask questions about it too. With that, I want to transition here back to the chat a little bit. And then, Jessica, I don't know, are you able to hear me right now? Oh, you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you. Like, you just showed up on the screen maybe 8 seconds ago. You were a spinning thing before. So there's
some sort of delay, but I'm so glad it's working. So you're able to see probably my exploration here of the new writing tool, but you weren't able to hear it. One of the things I shared with folks is that this past year, your team was really just doing all this writing work with the whiteboards. And so now there's this sort of exciting opportunity to go deeper with it with these new writing tools. So we're super excited for your team and also for everyone else that we're working with to be able to explore that in the coming year and for what it might mean for getting students more feedback on their writing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm just watching the chat here, and great question here. There's a question about students giving each other feedback. Jessica, did you have students giving each other some feedback on their writing through Snorkl? I think you mentioned that before. And were they commenting in Snorkl, or they were just looking at each other's work that they wrote in Snorkl?
They were sitting next to each other. Okay. And so we had little pods kiddos working together, and then they would like lean over and look and share. Or I would raise the hand and say, okay, who got some really great feedback that they want
Yeah.
to share with the room? And then was it helpful? We just had whole group conversations about what worked and what didn't for them.
I think that opportunity to be able to dissect that feedback with a peer
Mhm.
sounds like a really powerful learning experience. There is, to respond to this question in the chat, there is the option when you're assigning a Snorkl activity here. Let me jump to a screen where I can show this. There is the option. I'll find one here in a second. Here we go. There's the option to allow for collaboration. And so you could allow students to actually see each other's writing in the platform, and you can even turn on or off student to student comments. So you could allow students to give each other comments, feedback. That may or may not be what you want to do depending on the context or the grade level, but that is an option in the platform to turn on that collaboration mode. It won't let them see their peers' work until they've submitted at least one attempt on their own, just because we want to support students to try it themselves first and then potentially dive into some of their peers' work.
Mhm.
I'm curious, when you first rolled this out with your team, Jessica, did you have any folks who were using the writing in combination with the audio, and maybe what that looked like, or maybe not? And just curious what your experience with that was.
At the start, we were looking at it. I think the very first time I tried it was with math. Oh, actually, we had the conversations about trying to write across all the curriculum,
Yeah.
all subjects. And so when we first introduced it, it was to get the kiddos talking about their math thinking. So we were with our math curriculum
Yeah.
specialist. And then I thought, okay, let me try this with my son. My son is dysgraphic. And so the writing portion, we struggle to get it down, but him saying the things was easy. And he's sitting on the couch. I look at him, I'll never forget this. And this is when I knew that this was going to work for all the other children in the world. I saw the feedback hit the screen. I saw him, read it, and his face was like, and then there was this grin. And I said, oh, what's this? Because also the writing was, it's the one of those things that freezes him. And so when I said, well, what did it tell you? And he said, well, it told me stuff that I did good. I said,
Yeah.
is that a good thing? He's like, yes. I was like, oh, okay. And it just grew my mom heart. And so when I got to see that in classroom after classroom after classroom, is just the best feeling in the world. And so when we spread that to the team, they got to see those experiences as well. And we're just going to keep going. We're going to keep going because it's the best thing. It's the best thing ever.
I love that. I think, from the very get-go, one of the things that we were most excited about when we were creating Snorkl was this idea that when we capture students' thinking and more than just their answer, we can find things to celebrate, even if they sometimes get the wrong answer. And so, like with the whiteboard recording, we started Snorkl specifically around math, but so often there's so many math tools where if you get it wrong, you get a red X, you're told to go watch someone else do it. And from the very get-go, we thought, well, even if someone's getting the wrong answer, there might be things in their thinking we can celebrate and praise. And so we want to bring that forward. I think the same is true of writing, where we can bring praise forward for every student on some portion of their attempt or their effort, and find something that gives them encouragement, and then keep going from there.
Yeah, that definitely helps all of our neuro spicy babies who have, when they hear the negative, it's like, well, obviously also adults. When you hear the negative, that's the only thing you can focus on.
Yeah.
But when you start with the good, and it opens you up to more feedback. And so that's something I really love at Snorkl as well.
I love that. Yeah. And then I know that you also have a large English language learner population there in Northeast ISD, correct?
We do.
Have you had students? I know I've talked to schools where they are using Snorkl to really support those students in developing English practice. We also, have the ability for students to share in their native language and practice that, or sometimes there's dual language schools where they're doing Snorkl in multiple languages. Curious,
Mhm.
what has been your experience with supporting some of those students, either with or around Snorkel?
Yeah, we have a couple of dual language campuses. I am at one of them, and I have a teammate. Her name's Rosalina. She has really spearheaded a lot of use of Snorkel. Her and a couple of other teammates as well. And so we've got both the Snorkel in English and in Spanish, and from fourth to fifth grade examples, and the kids are really thriving with it. And so I'm really, really proud of the work that they've done. I'm going to try and go back and add some more to my presentation so I can give you guys the bank of activities that our team has made. I asked them
Great.
yesterday if they were cool with it, and they were like, yes. So I say, hooray, the more the merrier. So you'll not just hear it from me, you'll hear it from all of us.
That would be great. I think people in the chat here would be excited about that.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, as people create activities in Snorkel, one of the cool things is you can share those activities with other people, both within the school or the district, but also you can just post it on social media or send an email to anyone anywhere. So
Yeah.
Jessica, huge thank you, and thanks for navigating the tech challenges. I don't know what was happening, but from our end it was perfect. Like, we could see you, we could hear you, and I'm glad eventually you could see and hear me as well.
Okay. Okay. I appreciate it. I
Yes.
appreciate it greatly. I hope you all have a wonderful snorkel day. It's great. It was great.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having me.